A man is not old until regrets take the place of dreams. Well, that brilliant statement was said by John Barrymore. It is so easy to fall into a mindset where we're obsessed with regrets. And in the process of feeling regret, we ultimately turn on ourselves. We do this naturally, even in non-life changing situations like being stuck in rush hour traffic. We might not have taken an earlier exit. And as a result, many of us think, why did I stay on this road? Now I'm completely trapped. I'm stuck. I'm a victim to this mess. We're not moving. And your frustration and anger grows by the minute. Well, we do the same thing when many of our decisions that we made in our lives, especially in the area of relationships and career decisions, we have feelings of regret around some of the decisions that we made in those particular areas of our lives. And I'm telling you, sitting in that place of regret will stop us in our tracks from moving forward to creating the next chapter that you want. I know you want. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sharri Harmel. I'm your host for the show for women over 50 who are looking to create amazing next chapters. We talk about the things that stop you or even challenge you along the way, but also a bit of inspiration. In the Come With Me series that I run, where I take you to places that inspire me on my own next chapter journey, and I sure hope that you feel that same inspiration. So let's get back to regrets. At various times, especially as I've gotten older, I sometimes find myself filled with regrets. Regrets over the big choices, such as the men I've chosen, quitting my career, staying married, trusting certain people. But I also regret the little decisions, such as parenting decisions, homes I sold, quitting tennis, when I acted in ways that really wasn't my best self. We all do it, right? But what happens when we spend time thinking about regrets? What goes on here? Let's go back to the driving example. It starts with this conscious thought, oh my God, this looks like a mess, that nobody's moving, and now I'm stuck. It evolves often into self-put-downs, like, why didn't I get off at that last exit? How could I have been so stupid to think this was a good idea? And we'll often also start to feel pissed off about the people around us. Where are they all going? It's 3:30 in the afternoon. It wasn't supposed to be busy. And then we get super angry at the drivers who are not following the rules, right? The ones that are not in the lane, who jut in, don't follow the rules. Why are they so special? Why do they think they're special? I don't know if you're like this, but I begin to dislike everyone on the road who's next to me. And I feel like a complete victim. Regret is actually a neurological process, if you can believe it. Chemical reactions are happening in our brains when we go through the regret process. And this has all been proven through functional MRIs, which functional MRIs, if you didn't know it, I'm sure you probably do, have just opened up our knowledge and information as to how the brain operates. Very, very cool. The first change that is occurring in the brain is increased activity in the amygdala. And the amygdala is at the base of the brainstem, and it controls emotion, memory, fight or flight. It is the oldest part of our brain. And that makes sense now when you think of flight or fight and memory. It's part of the limbic system that, really kept us safe way back when. As anger or frustration rises, you feel this emotional desire to escape from the freeway, right? There's a flight there. You're pissed off, that's a fight emotion. But that's not all. Your amygdala, as I mentioned, starts to attach meaning to your situation. And that can be when you turn on yourself. And you begin in that process, possibly sitting on that freeway saying to yourself, why in the world didn't I take that last exit? You begin to think of all the times that you were trapped that have nothing to do with the present moment. Well, regret about life decisions works exactly the same way. You feel strong emotions about whatever it is that you are feeling regret over, and then you attach meaning to it. You start to wonder things like, how could I have been so stupid? How could I have this pattern of something negative? Maybe trusting narcissistic people over and over and over. As I reflect back on my big life regrets, number one, not being able to raise my son, who I gave birth to when I was a teenager, not making good choices with the men in my life, and marrying someone who really didn't love me, never did. Thinking, this is a big one, thinking I could change the people in my life just because I love them. How self-centered is that? Giving up my career because my husband asked me to. Those are biggies. If I dwell on any one of those regretful choices, I see that I feel regret. And when I reflect on the patterns that evolve from those decisions, because life is like a domino set up on a table, right? You make one decision, one choice, and something else moves. And then the next one happens, and the next one happens. But when I reflect on those patterns, I can become overwhelmingly sad. Actually, depression, at the core of depression, is often regret. Plus, and I have to say this, a big part of regret is that we employ what's called counterfactual thinking. It's basically suppositional thinking as to how things would have turned out if we had made a different decision. When you feel regret, you're often so sure, I know I am, that another path would have been better and would have been the key to a much happier life. Just like that traffic jam on the freeway, you can let yourself be absolutely sure that if you had gotten off on the last exit, you'd be driving on open roads all the way to your destination, whatever that is. But you don't really know if that's true, right? It's all supposition. How do I know that if I had not married my former husband, that I would have made a better choice and had a loving marriage? I don't. How do I know that if I had not agreed to quit my career, that my life would have suddenly turned out better? I really don't know that. I can't be sure of either. So at the core of regret thinking is this belief that your life would have been better if you had taken a different path, chosen a different career, a different partner, you fill in the blanks. Byron Katie, who was just brilliant and has written a couple of books on this topic, but she brought up that question that we need to ask ourselves, whether we're trying to figure out what are someone else's motives or what's going on with someone else, something that's interpersonal like that, or even from the perspective, I use it on the perspective of regrets. And that question is, what do you know is true? Truth is provable. It's right there. So what do you know is true? When you ask that question, feeling regretful, when you ask that question, suddenly you can see that many of our regrets are based on an assumption that's pretty close to fantasy. What could have been? We can acknowledge that something was a bad decision, a bad choice, but honestly, we can't know for sure how the alternative would have worked out, right? But feeling regret is normal. And therefore, what do you do when you fall into that regret hole? First, as I said, although regrets can be viewed as just feelings that you have from the negative choices that you made, regrets also have the ability to take us in positive directions. If you step back from the negative aspect of feeling regret and instead look at the situations and subsequent choices from, say, a bigger view, more of a life view, your perspective starts to change. And because part of doing that, looking at your life in entirety, you start to build your self-awareness and you lessen the anger or frustration that you might feel against yourself. And it might even help you to reignite the dreams that you've held onto for a long time. Therefore, our regrets actually can have some really amazing lessons for us. For example, when I look back, I saw how my first love, that intense first love we all had, resulted in a pregnancy and being forced to give my son up for adoption. Now, thankfully, my son was adopted by a loving couple, and he got the stability, the opportunities, and the consistent love that every child deserves. But for me, getting pregnant as a teenager and giving up my child forever altered my self-confidence and even my self-worth. When I observed that shift, when I look back in the big picture, I realized that of course I would choose to marry a man who wasn't capable of loving me. Of course, makes perfect sense, right? And when I saw that intense regret that I felt shifted and was replaced with compassion for myself. Those life choices that I made sense at the time. And therefore, I need to stop beating myself up with these, regrets. I want you to do the same, because when you stand back, as I said, and observe yourself, you can see that regrets are fueled by a sureness, that faulty assumption that's at the core of every regret, that you know exactly how things would have turned out if you had made a different choice. Talking about my own experience, how in the world could I have raised my son with no education beyond high school and no family support? I would have been homeless on the streets, and it might have turned out to be much, much worse for my child and myself than I could ever have imagined. Now, my son and I today have a very loving and close relationship. But, yes, that decision changed my life in many ways, but understanding it from a larger perspective helps me to, see myself differently and have compassion for some of those experiences rather than to be filled with regret. So stand back and look at whatever situation that's causing you to feel regret. And first ask yourself how it could have turned out very differently from the positive outcome that you're imagining. And I bet that you'll suddenly see that you need to have compassion for your younger self, that person you were who made those choices. Here we are. We have the gift of time now that you didn't have then, right? What's easy to see as a really bad choice today was not very clear in the moment that it was all happening in your life, right? So rather than letting regret take over, and become what could have been, why not have compassion for the woman who made the choice at that particular time? Number two, there's that saying, it is what it is, right? Or as the Brits say, keep calm and carry on. Those phrases have many benefits, and part of it is we cannot change the past. We cannot recapture our youth. We can't turn back the clock and do it differently. You and I have to start with where we are right now. I talk about this quite a bit in my book that will be coming out at the end of this year. It's titled Design Your Fabulous Next Chapter. And if you haven't signed up for the VIP waitlist, I'm telling you, you must do it. The link is below, but it's free and you'll get all kinds of pre-launch gifts. So sign up. But accepting that your past is what it is and being present to what your life is right now and the future that you can create is key to using regrets in positive ways. You carry all of your life experiences with you, the good ones and the not so good. I call them our little wagons of stuff that we drag behind us. When we're young, it's a child-sized wagon back there, right? But as you get to probably my age, there's like a very large RV back there. It's full of all my stuff that comes from all of the life experiences that I've had, and you too. But if you are present, you can observe how you learned something from each and every decision that you've ever made. Each bit of stuff that's back there that you're dragging around with you has the ability to teach you something, to open something up inside of you. Life is about doing. And when we do things, we naturally will make some mistakes. Mistakes are just great learning tools. Which takes me to suggestion number 3. When you find yourself focusing on regrets, I suggest you begin by making a daily list of your accomplishments, big and small. My daughter has gone through some incredibly difficult times over the past year. She's doing so much better now, but it has been an incredible year. And this was one of my suggestions for her, which she says continues to help her to stay positive. At the end of every single day, write down everything that you accomplished that day. Even if it's, tiny, like maybe you made a meal out of leftovers. Maybe you did the laundry. Maybe you wrote in your journal for 5 minutes. Write it all down and do it every single day. And when you do that, you'll not only start to observe all the things you've accomplished each and every day, but you get your head out of the past, which is where regrets live. Dreams and regrets are like opposite sides of the same coin. I wish I had a coin with me right here. And that coin is our life. On one side of the coin are regrets. Regrets are about missed opportunities, right? Choices we wished we had made differently. Paths we wish we hadn't taken. Regrets are all about the past. But the other side of the coin is our dreams. These are our aspirations, our hopes, our desires. And this side of the coin is where the present is, as well as our futures. Focusing on the regret side of the coin will stifle any chance you have to create a fabulous next chapter. And ultimately, I've even read, prematurely age you, which none of us want, right? On the hopes and dreams side of the coin, we have lives that are vibrant and purposeful, hopeful. That's what our next chapters should be all about for every single one of us. So let's all choose to hold on to our dreams and take action in the present. Regrets are only tools to help us to move more quickly towards our next chapter dreams. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if so, give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. This is how YouTube keeps track of us. Our channel is growing. It has grown exponentially over the last month and a half. It's really fun to see. And I want to thank all of you for sharing this show with others who are also ready to design their own fabulous next chapter. Also, I have to share, I have gotten so many comments on these videos, and I love them. I read every single comment, so keep commenting. I try to respond to as many of them as I possibly can. But thank you, everyone. Take good care. A biento.